like Frank was saying, the building is you know, our buddy Joe had said this place feels haunted, and then I said I wasn't going to say anything, but last week I was in that unit 5, the one right next to us, and I said I woke up at 3 a.m. and I had blue light emanating from the charger of my vape, and I saw this silhouette of this woman in what looks like a hat. And it was so clear, and I was so wide awake.
This is here?
This is here, but not in this unit, in the one over. I haven't felt anything here, and I've never, ever had a experience with a spirit in my life. But I looked at the thing, I turned on my light, and then all of a sudden it was gone, turned the light back off, and then nothing was emanating. And I just kind of, I remember I did the sign of the cross, said, you know, Jesus, keep me safe, and then I basically went to sleep. And then I had forgotten about it till my buddy came up, who's a clairvoyant, Frank's, all three of our buddy, Joe, and said
clairvoyant,
that it was haunted, where you can feel spirits, basically. He can feel spirits, and he ends up seeing lots of things. Yeah, he's seen a lot of things. So he told me, sounds like you had your first experience with a shadow person. What was creepy was I went and I stood by the bed to find out how far I had to be for that shadow to be cast. And it was about only the length of this table, and I was facing the wall to see how big it would be, and then I like turned around and I was like, the spirit was probably facing me in the bed, and it's only like this far away, and
there was like nothing between your light or the wall that would
nothing.
Like, cast
yes,
a shadow.
good point. I checked everything on the table. Good point. I checked everything on the table to make sure there wasn't anything, and then again, I didn't even move anything. I just turned the light on, turned it off, and then here's where it gets creepy. Joe tells me that, and then I'm down. I go to lunch with Troy from Brighton, and I'm downstairs walking along 25th Street, and I see this sign that basically has some history of Ogden in it, and it shows this picture of this lady, not in a hat, but with her hair up high, the exact same silhouette I saw, and she was like the first madam in Ogden, and this place used to be a brothel. Wow. I asked the owner of this place. It used to be a brothel. In the 70s, it burned down and people did die. And I guess in the early 2000s, a ghost hunting crew came to actually experience this place because they'd heard some things about it. So it was pretty unreal experience. It didn't feel evil or anything. But you were saying something about 3 a.m. that's significant.
Yeah. 3 a.m. is like a time for spirits and people that are on a like spiritual awakening or have experiences like that typically wake up every night at 3 a.m. So that caught my ear when you said that. Yeah.
Wow.
See, that's wild because, yeah.
A lot of my addiction surrounds a lot of weird stuff like that. So
really.
Mm-hmm. That's why it was interesting you even started talking about it. I was just
going
to stay away from it.
Well, I was going to ask you because, like, I know that you're, like, a Reiki master and, like, you know, I don't know a whole lot of stuff about that, but I feel like there might be a reason why you wanted to do that or work with energy like that, or if, like, you know, you might also have experience with, like, I don't know, spirits or energies or whatever like that, too.
Yeah. Just from the time I was little, and I don't know, I think a lot of addicts and alcoholics are like this, but I feel things and think about things very deeply and very sensitive.
Right.
When I was younger, I used to have really bad nightmares, and they actually had to have a bishop come over and like exorcise me or do whatever they did, because my parents will talk about it now because it was pretty intense. Like,
how old were you?
Probably like 5. And you know,
an actual exorcism?
I don't.
It was just probably like just a blessing, an intense
it was
blessing.
an LDS bishop, but that's an intense blessing probably, because I would just wake up freaking out, seeing things in my room, and then I don't see anything, and I still don't, but I feel things very, very strongly.
That's intense, and it can be just as real. I mean,
yeah. So a lot of like when I connect the dots with my addiction and alcoholism, like, a lot of it was like hiding from those feeling things so intensely, or like I have a deep passion for people, so I can feel what you're feeling. I can, you know, it's just really so
like an empath.
I've noticed that about you. That's interesting.
I have too, because, like, you know, I went through a program like early last year that, you know, you work at, and I just noticed that you were someone that everyone could connect with, you know. There's not like one person that went through it that's just like, oh, I really have a problem with Amberly. Amberly sucks, you know. If you say that, you're just like a bad person, or you're a shitty person, you know. And there are, you know, staff members that people do direct that towards, and you're just not one of them. You're so easy to talk to and connect to, and I definitely felt that you know, you're really empathic and can connect with people's struggles and what they're going through, and you know, it makes you good at what you do.
Well, for you listeners, we'll jump in and introduce. This is Amberly, a good friend of mine, and a good friend of ours. She's worked in the war program. She works for Cold Creek Behavioral, and she's become a really good friend of mine and bought into the war lifestyle and has helped hundreds of people. And so, we got her on the podcast. She's got an awesome story that she's going to share with all of us. And so we're stoked to have you on, dude.
Heck yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Have you had a female on here yet?
No.
You're the first.
This is our first female.
We were just talking about that last week. We need to get a female perspective on here. And Hawk's like, how about Amber Lee? Like, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
So what is a Reiki master exactly?
So Reiki is like a healing modality, and it uses energy. So it really that comes into part of my story where, you know, growing up, when I talked about those things, I could feel things a lot. One of the problems was that looking back, I didn't know that. So I would take on other people's emotions and I would feel them, and I wouldn't know what was wrong with me, and I was always sick. And so one of the things I've had to learn how to do in my recovery is, you know, learn what's my stuff, what's your stuff, how to have boundaries, you know, natural things that a lot of us have to do.
It's important.
Yeah.
I dealt with that a lot too, because I think in my addiction, it was a way to keep me from looking at myself, like almost a defense mechanism. So I'd take on other people's stuff and like be super focused on that, but not even know how to connect to my own emotions, like let alone work on them.
Right. So at the very start, right before I finally started getting sober and stuff, you know, I kind of put a shout out to the universe, like, I don't even know what to do. Where do I go from here? I don't know what to do. And I met up with a friend of mine from junior high who's a Reiki master, and he did a Reiki session with me, and that just kind of started me on the path. You know, Reiki masters go through courses where they get attuned to, you know, different symbols, and it's basically using your hands to move energy throughout the body, you know, and it makes a lot of sense to me how everything is energy around us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the like correlations with the workouts at war and things too is, you know, you get in there and do an intense hard workout, and your, you know, chemicals are changing, but you're energetically like releasing things as you're moving them throughout your body, you know, so it just makes a lot of sense to me with chakras. And
also how the group workouts would be more effective too, because people feed on them, you know. I often found in the past when I go into the gym alone, you know, I might go to a couple machines or work out, but it wasn't with the intensity and like my, you know, the emotions weren't there. But when you're doing it in a group setting, you know, Hawk's leading it, like you feel it and everyone's motivated. And I think that might be a lot to do with it, you know, just everyone's energy is, you know, they're releasing it.
Good energy. You hear that all the time, man. There's good energy in here today.
You
know.
It moves it through your body. So and there's like the chakra system, you know, and you can have like trauma or experiences where, you know, energy literally gets stored in there in your body, and, you know, just learning how to move it through. And it's all about your own healing and your own path, and you have to do the work, but it's good stuff. The definition is like spinning wheel of energy, and there's 7 that correlate with your body, and, you know, you can have different experiences or traumas and that just get stuck in there, you know.
Right.
Talk a little bit about the war symbol, because I thought that was a funny story.
So that is a funny story.
Yeah.
Like, you know, for me, like, so how I chose the war symbol, I mean, I just saw it and saw that it was an ancient Japanese symbol. But I never knew that it was like Reiki. I knew it was the Chokurei symbol. Chokurei. Yeah.
I thought it just looked like a music treble clef.
Well,
but I was like, that's cool.
Exactly what I thought too.
No idea.
Well, the thing that I like, the way I envision it for myself, the meaning and for war was like, So like it's kind of looks like a cocoon. So like wraps you up and protects you. Then also like I pictured it like progress, like making progress on that path of, you know, coming through.
Yeah, like there's no coincidences, the synchronicity. Like when I started working with you, I had no idea, but when I saw that, I just about like fell over, you know, because it's a symbol used, you know, in Reiki. And
and Hawk had no idea.
Yeah,
I was like,
Came in as a Reiki master. Like, that's a Reiki symbol.
Yeah, you know what that symbol means? I'm like, yeah, I mean a little.
So what does it mean to you, or like in the Reiki terminology or that world?
it's like a power symbol, and it's about love.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Power symbol, like motivation, compete with yourself.
Yeah, you can take it in
Yeah,
a lot
just
of
in a
different
loving
directions.
way.
directions.
Yeah,
you know?
that's why it's like the power symbol, because
Right.
it can just bring all the love to a place at once.
Which is what it's all about.
War, love.
That is the answer.
That's cool.
Yeah, because when I picked, or then I started seeing it, you know, like around, like I saw a couple of people with it, with tattoos of it or whatever, the people that I didn't even know with that symbol, and I was like, that's a war symbol. Like, no, it's not.
Well, when we did Fit Friday last month too, that woman that worked at Diamond Tree, she was asking me about it, and she's like, you know, I'm a Reiki master, and that's a Reiki symbol. And I started laughing because I'd heard the story with Amber Lee, and I was like, like Hawk didn't even know it when he picked that symbol, but
I love it.
yeah, it's
Good
cool.
thing you picked the right one.
Yeah.
Right?
Could you imagine if it meant something else?
Yeah.
I mean, just where your imagination could go.
Right.
This is the dark energy that
Yeah,
Reiki
exactly.
masters are trying to get out
This
of
is
you.
this is like the Voldemort
Yeah.
of symbols,
Right.
like the one that should not be named.
yeah.
So I want to hear, you know, and we all want to hear. I want to kind of hear. I actually haven't heard your story. Like I've heard pieces of it a little bit as
Yeah.
we've been BSing, you know.
Right.
But I you know, the reason we do this podcast, I've told you this, and our listeners heard it, but it's just to help people who need help, and they can draw some strength from your story. So if you don't mind, let's kind of go in that direction and kind of tell us what went on, you know, and what happened.
Yeah, for sure. You know, because a lot of things that have happened, and like most of us that lead us to that, there's a lot of shame. And one of the things, I get really nervous and uncomfortable sometimes talking and sharing my story, like in speaker meetings or things like that, but I just try to remind myself, like, I have walked this path, and I want, if anyone can hear something that I say that I've been through, then it helps them, you know, that's great.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
And I
beautiful.
assure you it will.
Yeah.
People reach out and tell us that.
It's one cool thing about service is like oftentimes you think it, you know, maybe it's only the 12th step or taking other people through the steps, but there's so many forms of it. Even
No.
just sharing your story in a meeting or doing something like the podcast, you know, that someone could listen to and connect to. So I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like it serves a multitude of purposes. Like this program and so many different things do, you know, it helps me too to be able to talk about my story and have acceptance. And then that helps me heal from shame that I feel about it, you know, and it also reminds me where I came from. You know, I think
Exactly.
relapses, I read something the other day that talks about relapses happen when we get disconnected from what it was like, or we forget the pain of what it was like.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That's what-
true.
I like that, you know, in the big book when it says we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it.
Right.
You know, it's not like you shut it out and forget it. You know, even talking about it, it's powerful and cathartic and can help you still, you know, continue to process it, which is important to hold on to.
Yeah, embrace it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
embrace it. It is, like you said, you get disconnected from your past, and you just remember, oh my gosh, it was so great when I would get those pills and be able to just, count them up, divide them, just all that stuff. You know, you romanticize it, but you don't ever think about the part of where you were. You know, like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I got to the point where I was stealing money, where I was committing crime, whatever it might be that we did.
Yeah.
You know, so you're so right about that. It's important. And so I'm glad you're sharing, because it will help us all remind
Yeah.
each other of where we were.
Yeah, I think our brains have like this natural ability to kind of forget things like that, like women who have babies. I mean, if you remembered what it was like having a baby, you're never going to have one again, right? Like, like
It's a defense mechanism.
Yeah. So, you know, sometimes, I want to forget my past, and but God, the universe, are a huge part of my life today. And so I respond to kind of what shows up. And I haven't told my story. It had probably been like over a year, and just in the past 2 months I have spoke at the women's retreat house, at Valley Camp.
Wow.
And then Dustin asked me to do this, and I'm like, what? I must need to remember where I came from, right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
God works in crazy ways.
Yeah. So I grew up in Hooper.
Right.
Are you from Utah, Don?
I am. I'm from Salt Lake, and I know Hooper because my girlfriend used to live there, but I've only been there maybe once or twice.
Yeah. You know
I
where
have no idea.
Yeah, it's out west. It's a little, little
Roy.
town.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little town. I grew up in a, religious area, and I had a great family, great parents, nice house. They treated me well. When I was younger, I had a series of years of some sexual abuse trauma. And just this, when I shared my story at the women's retreat house, was the first time I started talking about that a little bit. I kind of have just not thought about it since I was a child, really. I kind of just stuffed it.
Mechanism.
Yeah, I've stuffed it. I've stuffed it. And when I was like connecting with God, and before I went over there, it kept coming up that I needed to talk about it. And I've always felt so much guilt and shame over that. If you know this about me, you're not going to like me.
Mm-hmm.
And that night, I don't know, it just came out of my mouth. And all these women, came up to me after and were like, you're not alone. You helped me out. So I feel like it's an important part to share. Also because looking back and connecting some dots, it dramatically affected where I went in my life.
Right.
I felt a lot of guilt. I felt a lot of shame. I didn't feel worthy and it went on for quite a few years. So it became very normal to me. And when I realized that there was a problem, and I started going to counseling and realized that like those things weren't happening to my friends, right?
Sure.
It was very shameful. And I became kind of insecure. I was embarrassed. I would go to counseling, and I hated it. I hated the whole experience. So that kind of left me feeling very insecure about myself, not feeling like I fit in with girls that were really good girls, so
Yeah, normal.
yeah. So that kind of led me into high school. I always had a lot of friends. I did well in school. I was really smart. When I applied myself, I had great grades. And in high school, I started partying and smoking pot, drinking. And, when I first started drinking from the get-go, I was a mess. It was balls to the wall, all or nothing. I blacked out my first time drinking and just partied hard.
It's a common theme among people like us.
Yeah.
Don't just ease into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Was the sexual abuse still going on at this point, or had this stopped?
No, it stopped. So, like probably around when I was 12,
Okay.
One of the people went into a treatment center, and it said like, this is what's been going on. And so the family got involved, and I was getting counseling, and, so that had stopped around 12, but
Okay.
yeah. Oh, and one thing too that I noticed looking back is I feel like food became like my first addiction.
Yeah.
I just like started feeling that void. And my family has, obesity is prevalent. The genetics are
Right.
there. We were, I was raised on Pop-Tarts and Cocoa
Right.
Pebbles, and,
Right.
they fed me
Me
good
too.
meals, but you know what I mean? So
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wonder Bread.
yeah, so I was a bigger girl, and that, like I said, I had friends and I got along well, but that always bothered me. Just always bothered me. When I was 16 years old, somebody asked me if I wanted to do crank. Back then it was called crank.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Meth,
and
basically.
then it turned to meth. But the second I did that, I had found the solution. I had arrived. It was just game over. Like it's what I had been missing my whole life. I felt confident. I had a decreased appetite, so I naturally lost weight. I was normally kind of depressed and down. So my mood was up. I had energy, and I was just in love. I didn't care about anything anymore. I didn't care about my family. I didn't care about school. And my sophomore year of high school, I had a 4.0 GPA. Like, so when I apply myself, you know,
Sure.
Yeah.
and I ended up graduating, but barely. And I remember graduating from high school and being 18 and thinking, like, now what am I going to do? Right? Like, I've got to take care of myself and grow up. But I was hooked on that. When I was 18, still in high school, I'd gotten pulled over with my drug dealers, and they said, here, put this in your bra. And I was like, no, but I put it in my glove box, and they found it. And I wouldn't say whose it was, but my car got impounded. I had to come get picked up from jail. You know, it was just a mess from the start. And I feel like, looking back, every drug I did, it was hard and fast downward spiral.
Right.
You know, I spent my 19th birthday in the ACT.
Right, detoxing.
Yeah. And while I was in there, you know, I really wanted to quit using meth, but that was about it. You know, like, they took me to a Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, a women's group, and I remember thinking, these women just don't know how to drink, right?
This isn't my problem.
Yeah.
I feel like that's common for young people going into treatment, because right after my 19th birthday is when I went into treatment the first time, and that was the furthest thought from my mind, is, you know, being sober off everything, you know, stopping smoking weed, stopping drinking. Are you kidding
Right.
me?
I'm not even 21
Yeah,
yet.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of young kids that go to treatment, that's, you know, a thought that they have, and it's hard because, you know, you want to impress upon them that it's a problem. They don't just end up in treatment by accident necessarily, or a very small percentage, you know, just might off a whim, or parents making them go. But, you know, they kind of have to experience it themselves, that, you know, to go through it, to realize that sobriety is probably the best solution.
Right.
So true.
Right. So when I got out of treatment, I did relapse.
So from ACT, you did treatment after that, you're saying?
In the ACT.
Oh, in
they
ACT.
offer
Okay,
treatment
gotcha.
too.
So I actually ended up in the behavioral unit for 3 days. You
Gotcha.
know, I was always on antidepressants, and you know, like, I always was wondering, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with my head? What is wrong with my mind? Like, I always thought that there was something that could fix me. Like, and it could not be as simple as I am an alcoholic or an addict. There's no way.
Right.
Like, I'm way too unique and different. That's not the answer, right? So being up on meth with a head like mine was not good, right, for a long time. So I was in the behavioral unit, and then they transferred me over to the treatment side of things. When I got out, I did relapse a couple times with people that I was in treatment with. We decided to start hanging out, and we ended up smoking weed, and the next thing you know, the heroin addicts are doing heroin and I'm doing meth, right?
Yep.
And it was like, going to treatment for that, it's, you know, like they say, when you go through AA or treatment, you know, a belly full of AA or head full of AA and a belly full of beer doesn't mix.
Right.
You know, it just, I didn't want to do it anymore. And I kind of started pulling things together, and, you know, I started working as a CNA. You know, I've always been gravitated toward helping professions naturally, because I feel for people. So I loved it. I loved working, you know, with the elderly, helping people. But at that time, you know, I was about to be 21, and alcohol started coming into my life and partying. And I could kind of hold it together with my job. I was a huge binge drinker. I would work a swing shift, and I would, like, sleep till I had to go to work, get off at 10:30, and then just go party. And, you know, I seemed to do okay when I drank beer, but the minute liquor hit my lips, I was blacked out, waking up in different hotels, don't know where my car is. You know, it was always such a disaster. And a lot of my friends didn't do that. Like, I was just,
Right.
I couldn't get it. Like, and they would even tell me, like, Amberly, like, slow down, right? Or, like, you gotta, you know, take it easy. Or, so I'd be like, okay, I'll just take one shot.
Yeah, here's how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was just always to the extreme, and I was always doing crazy stuff, you know, and some people could hang and some couldn't. But I would do a lot of shameful things too, you know, and hear about it later.
Absolutely.
So that didn't contribute, you know, to anything. But I was in a relationship with a pretty decent guy that I cared about a lot. And my drinking just didn't mix with that. You know, I was a mess, you know. I felt, you know, like when I'm sober, I'm a faithful person, but you get me blacked out drunk, and the next day my boyfriend's like, you did this,
you
know.
did this, and this.
And I'm like, no, I didn't, you know, and
Right.
yeah, you know, you did. So I lost that relationship, and I was on the phone with the ACT, like crying. I've got a problem with alcohol now. I don't know what to do. Like, I'm a mess, right? And I didn't go back into treatment. I had actually called to talk to one of the staff that I'd really connected with, and she had passed away. But just looking back on that, it kind of makes me laugh. You know, how you have to learn things for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So I was really, really depressed over losing that relationship, and I ended up in another behavioral unit, you know.
So you're starting to do meth again?
I hadn't started doing meth again, I don't believe, but it was, you know, always like I couldn't handle emotional situations like that. Like,
Right.
it was always to an extreme, like, and I would get suicidal and just behavioral problems, and don't know what's wrong with me, because everyone would say, you know, you're really pretty, you're really smart, like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know, like, what's wrong with me? I have no idea.
You have so much potential.
Yeah, and I'd be
That's
like,
the word I hated the most.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
You're so smart.
Yeah, like, what are you doing? It's like, I don't know, you know. So I ended up in another behavioral unit, and shortly after that, I didn't really care, you know, about anything, and somehow I ended up on meth again, and that was just dark, you
Yeah.
know. It was dark, and I was depressed, and
What
It's
age
never
were
a
you
good
about that
time. It's like very rare to hear someone like, I was doing meth for, 5 years. It was all right, it was a good time. Like, no, it's always very negative.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And you're always chasing the way it was before, and
Yeah,
that first
absolutely.
high where it was the solution, and it was what I needed in my life. It just never went back there, you know. It was just dark.
I remember the first time I did heroin, I was like on my couch at my apartment in LA, and I had this feeling of I was really thirsty and hungry, but it didn't matter. Like, I could stay on that couch and be 100% content because I'm feeling so good. And it's like that was overriding my natural senses for, like, normally if you're thirsty, you're like, oh, I'm not comfortable. I was so comfortable.
Right.
I could stay on that couch for, for a lifetime. And then, 2 years later, it's not like that at all. I'm literally doing heroin just to be normal, just keep well. And then when I'm not on it, I'm sick.
Right.
There's no more being high or any more magical experience. It turns dark really quickly.
Absolutely. And I can relate with what Frank said. I never actually went the meth route, Of course, the Adderall route, but I'm an ADHD kid, so it never really did what it does for other people. Did you do meth, Dustin?
No, but I was an
You did
Adderall. I was an
speed,
Adderall.
Yeah,
addict,
you were.
yeah.
So
Adderall, Ritalin.
I can't really relate, but I can imagine. Is it similar to what us opiate addicts feel like, where you had to do it to get well, to be normal?
With meth?
Yes.
Not
they
really.
turn
I don't think
Because
it's
I've
as
been an
physical.
opiate addict too. It's not. Yeah, it's just that it's a whole different world.
It grabs onto you just mentally.
I feel like you can participate. Well, maybe there's some somewhat functioning meth addicts. I have seen somewhat, but like with me, it was, like I could function in the world with opiates, but with meth, it's just you're in another world.
Yeah.
You're out of society.
Were you doing the whole 5 days at a time awake and then 3 days asleep
Yeah.
type program?
Yep. Yep.
And how were you doing it? Were you slamming it? Were you smoking it?
No, so I've never been an IV user, and I think about that now, and I know if somebody would have offered it to me and done it, I would have in a heartbeat.
Right.
For some reason, it just
Never
I
came
wonder
up.
if it was a protection thing. I don't know, because like I was saying with the sensitivities I have and stuff, one of the things I've had throughout my life is I started having grand mal seizures when I was 18.
Oh,
It's
wow.
around, it's kind of the time. I was we were sitting in my friend's garage who I was doing meth with, and we had just smoked weed, and I had a really bad one, blood out my mouth. Thank God that they called the ambulance. And I was diagnosed with epilepsy. So I took epilepsy medicine for years.
So is that like a speed? What type of medicine is that?
Just anti-seizure.
Or what am I thinking of?
Yeah.
I'm maybe thinking of the one where people can't stay awake.
No, so
You're thinking of narcolepsy.
Narcolepsy.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of
narcolepsy.
Epilepsy's, you're like,
Yeah.
but
can
it
induce
can be
seizures
some gnarly
easily.
medicine. Like they use some of it for like as an antipsychotic.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So the side effects can be pretty bad.
Yeah.
And just about like, I want to say 7 years ago, maybe, or 8 years, because I was still having seizures throughout my life periodically, and they diagnosed me with low blood sugar. Like they did an 8-hour glucose fasting test, and my blood sugar was going down to 45.
Wow.
So he's like, I don't even know how you're not in a coma, right?
That's crazy.
So looking back on my drug addiction, like my blood sugar couldn't have helped any matters, like not eating for days.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, my runs would be like 3 days maybe, and then I would sometimes have seizures, and
And you were bleeding out of your mouth.
yeah,
you
just
said?
biting your tongue,
Yeah,
the
right.
things that
Gosh.
happen. And then with the alcohol too, alcohol's all sugar,
Yeah.
So part of that's I was a
Spiking
mess.
and just
Yeah.
dropping.
Yeah.
It's wreaking
Downs.
havoc on your body.
Yeah. Where were we at?
Well, you were saying basically so that you continued to drink. You ended up going and getting help. With it, you called them, basically said, "Hey, I have a problem with alcohol now."
After
Then you
the
went into the
breakup.
behavioral unit right after the breakup.
And then you ended up back on meth again.
Yeah.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
where we were.
Oh yeah, and dark.
Yeah.
So at that time, I met my drug dealer's brother, and we began a fast relationship, and we used meth a few times together, but it was like the understanding we were both in a way dark place every time we used, and we were like, if this relationship is going to work, we probably should quit doing meth. So one cool part out of this relationship is we did quit doing meth together, and it has been like 15 years since I've used meth.
Nice.
Oh wow.
One of the bad things about the relationship is it was very abusive, very unhealthy, very sick,
Yeah.
Right.
very sick.
And you were able to quit meth during that relationship, just without any type of help at that point?
Yeah, I mean,
Just a burning desire to
Well,
quit?
sometimes I feel like the relationship itself can be such an unhealthy thing, like a drug that, it could drive you to stop doing the meth, but, it's almost like addicted or codependent to the relationship.
Yeah.
well, it was like we had this intention of like doing life right? But we were both super sick.
Yeah.
He was sick with his own things like meth-induced schizophrenia, psychosis.
Sure.
He was really abusive, and
Like verbally abusive or both?
he was very physically abusive. So one of the early symptoms, and one of my thinking in getting in this relationship, because he was very, very controlling, very jealous.
Sure.
I couldn't hang out with friends. And one of my things was, well, I am such a mess on my own. I'm so out of control. Like here's somebody that can control me. Because one of the first times we drank together, I think I was like running my mouth, and he started choking me. And I had never been I got up and hit him, and I gave him his first black eye. I broke my thumb,
Right.
and we're looking and like, so part of me was like, I can't drink with this guy. This is a mess,
Right.
So it actually kind of, I kind of settled down on drinking. I quit doing meth. He was a big marijuana smoker, helped a lot of his mental problems.
Right.
It really did.
Helped
But
him
with,
to slow down.
the voices, the thoughts,
Right.
it was very medicinal for him.
Sure.
For me, it was I was very lazy, and I ate. Like,
Yeah.
there was
Right.
no medicinal
Back
purposes
to the
for
food
me.
addiction.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So we tried. We went on with our relationship, and I ended up pregnant.
How old were you then?
I quit doing meth when I was 22, and I was 24 when I got pregnant.
Gotcha.
And I was never one of those girls that thought I want to get married someday and have kids. Like, a part of me was like, I can't do that. Like, I'm not that type, you know, to do that. So I was really scared. That changed and altered like my whole life.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I didn't use or drink when I was pregnant. I had him, and I was a good mom. Like, I really was. I impressed myself. Like, the love I felt for him.
Wow.
I think the fact that you were scared is a good thing, because I've always, you know, said that in the past. Like, I'd be really scared to, you know, have a kid or get a girl pregnant, and, you know, I got some outside thoughts on that. Like, I think that's a good thing, you know, because so many people just don't really care. It's like, oh, just another thing, like an inconvenience almost. But the fact that, you know, you really cared, and it's like the fact you're, you know, empathetic too, it just, you know, shows that you're a good parent too.
Or I've seen the reverse with women that want kids and want to be the mom, and they've never had a mental problem, and then they get postpartum depression. And they're like, I thought I wanted to be, and they don't understand it. I had struggled so much with my mental aspect that when I had him, it just gave me like a purpose, and it just dramatically shifted like who I was and where I was going. And you know, we tried, but one of the like first experiences I can have, or I can think of after I had him, is we'd brought him home from the hospital, and I was thinking in my head like, oh, we're not going to do drugs, we're going to have this family, and it's going to be so great.
Right.
And I could smell like marijuana coming out through the house, and then like he'd have friends over and they'd be drinking, and I just remember I was just sick all the time. Like, I was just like, I don't want to do this, you know. There was a lot of chaos and hell through those years, a lot of abuse, breaking up, getting back together. I would smoke pot and drink occasionally, but I pretty much was a mom and was working. That's when my like food addiction came back in. And looking back now, if I'm living on untreated alcoholism with no solution, one of my addictions is going to surface.
Absolutely.
It's like playing whack-a-mole.
Yeah. So I'd put on a lot of weight, you know, and just was, you know, kind of miserable. At one point, I was working at a plasma center, and I loved my job, and just, this is like almost 10 years into the relationship. I also think that living in those kind of conditions and that kind of sickness can manifest, you know, dis-ease in your body, disease. I was sick a lot. I started having back pain and just not well, you know, and I had a coworker who I was friends with, and she was like probably 18 at the time, and I was a little bit older, but she was, and I just started going to school again and just running kind of a hefty schedule, and she's like, I got something that the doctor gave me, here, try it, you know, and I didn't think about it, I just took it. I later found out it was Adderall. For a meth addict, I took that, and blam, again, I was like, this is my solution, it's prescribed, I have arrived, I got this, you know. So
it's so funny that you say that. I don't mean to interrupt, but
you're fine.
I remember experiencing after that first treatment center I went to when I was 19, you know, it was after a long period of depression. You know, I talked about it on my first podcast. I was doing ecstasy, you know, every day almost for, you know, months leading up to it. So I was depressed, didn't know why. Tried to kill myself. I wound up in rehab, did a 30-day program there, and I was starting feeling a little bit better, but not quite right. Then a couple weeks after that, I went back home to Idaho, and I was at a party with my friends and just feeling weird and not like myself. I couldn't connect to others. And then my friend gave me a lorazepam, which is like a, you know, Ativan,
Benzo,
like a benzo, like Xanax. And I remember thinking the exact same thing. I was like, this is it. Like, I'm not a drug addict. Like, this helps me. Like, I literally need this to be okay. And I remember thinking everything was right. And I remember thinking, like, that was the solution. I just need to do lorazepam every day, and I'll be perfectly normal again. And it's just the insane thinking. And when you look at, you know, the alcoholism or the way AA or NA describe it, that's exactly what it is. Like, drugs and alcohol are your solution to the problem.
Yes.
And when you take them away, you know, you're sick, you know.
Yeah.
You're a dry drunk.
Yes.
Untreated alcoholism.
It's the key to your life when you find it.
Yeah. But I just relate to that feeling so much.
Yes.
And so yeah, you took the Adderall and the same feeling again.
Yeah, it was just like, I had found the solution again. And, you know, after I became a mother, it was like street drugs were off the table, right? Like, not doing meth, but pharmaceuticals were, you know, because I had
green light.
Yeah, I had something wrong with my brain. Like, I know the doctors can help me if they just prescribe me the right combination, you know. So there was a lot of like benzos and antidepressants and different things I would use to try to alter my mood and fix the way I was feeling.
Just feel better, yeah.
Yeah. So right after that Adderall, I was to my doctor talking about symptoms of ADHD, which is the farthest thing from my personality at all. Like,
really?
Yeah, I don't have any of that, right? So this is just kind, loving doctor that just, you know, listen to me. Well, this girl also, she had like a legitimate back problems and would take, you know, pain pills. And, you know, I can feel things, like I said, very deeply. And I can literally like manifest people's pain into mine. Looking back, I didn't really know that's what I was doing, but my back started hurting really bad, right?
Right.
When you first said that, I was going to ask if it was from that.
Yeah. So looking back, I'm like, what? You know, so, and, you know, they found on x-rays and things, some things, like nothing super severe that I needed surgery or anything, but I ended up, you know, on pain pills. And those kind of gave me what I needed too. You know, they were my solution as well. And I just started exhausting my resources with that too. Like, there was never enough. And my doctor one day was like, I think you need to go to a pain clinic.
Yeah.
So I ended up at a pain clinic.
Did you know you were an addict at this point and that you were just chasing the pills, or were you still thinking you were treating your back?
So like Frank and I were talking about earlier, like, if I look back honestly at the time, like, I had myself convinced that like there was something physically, like I really did, like
you believe that you're drinking your own Kool-Aid.
And our brains are so powerful, you know,
immensely so,
that I had this like disabling back problem.
Well, yeah, like when I might wake up in the morning, right, with like a little back tweak, 'cause I've had the back surgery. I might wake up and there might be something there, and I'm in the past, and then I'd be like, oh, man, my back's hurting. Then I'd be in the shower and be like, man, my back's really hurting. And then by the time I'm out of the shower, I can barely walk, and I'm figuring it out about how, and I'm telling my wife, honey, I hurt my back, and I'm starting to get the self-pity, and then next thing you know, I'm practicing what I'm going to say to the doctor in the parking lot.
Exactly.
And then I'm making my way into and I'm sitting there going over in my head. I remember sitting at a doctor's office, sitting there and saying, if he doesn't give me these, I'm getting pills from this doctor. I'll cry.
No matter what.
I will cry in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I will come up and because I'm hurt, and just believing, you know, and it's exactly what you're saying, right? I mean,
it's just the delusion that addicts go through. You like actually believe it, you know, you're believing your own bullshit. Because even for you, I mean, I would imagine you like quit the meth and quit doing the street drugs. So like you're thinking, you know, that was the problem. I've stopped doing that. I'm a good mom. So like this isn't an issue. I have back pain. Like I need the Xanax.
I'm being responsible by getting these pills.
I'm not doing it off the street. I'm getting them from a doctor.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with me.
Yeah. And I mean, my life and my home life was really, you know, chaotic. So that only made me want to escape more, you know, and just made the back pain worse. And it made me in kind of like victim and self-pity mode, like, oh, I need to get taken care of, you know.
Right.
It's one little slice of, you know, peace or contentment you can find in your life.
Yeah. So
so the back clinic, when you went to the back clinic, or this pain clinic, did you start getting some heavier pain pills?
Roxy's or Oxys or
I do not know how this place was even legal. No idea. A
pill mill.
They would give me whatever I wanted, and if I didn't like the patches, the
fentanyl patches.
Right.
I want to try this. And I switched through a bunch of different things, and then I found Roxy's that I was in love with. There was more solution. They would give, I don't remember, but it was like a lot a day. four times a day. Were they 30 milligrams?
the
You're
blues.
taking 4 30s a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's like the amount. I remember thinking that because I had seen people that had scripts for like 120 Roxys, and like the only logical thing I can think to have a script like that, if they're prescribing that, is for someone that's on their way out.
Right.
Absolutely.
Cancer patient.
Severe cancer. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't care how much pain you're experiencing in your life. It's not that much.
Overkill.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then
And there's no way you can just stay at 4 pills. No matter
Right.
what, you're going to become an addict at some point when you're
Right.
taking those.
right.
Even if you're not an addict in your genetics, you're still going to become dependent physically at least.
Oh yeah, if you're
Yeah.
taking 4 pills a
Right.
day after,
And then
you
your
know, a
tolerance
week
is
or
going to go
two,
up.
you're-
And then
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a death sentence. So yeah, you do need to be basically
It's-
on your way out for it to be right.
It's overkill.
Absolutely.
Vicodin, a couple Vicodins a day can work for people with gnarly back surgery,
Right.
so much stuff. I had a doctor tell me that he used to prescribe Suboxone for pain for people with like sickle cell anemia.
Right.
And like it works and it's enough,
Right.
And if you're,
And it
don't
prevents
have
the abuse.
yeah, and if you don't have an opiate naive brain, like Suboxone just doesn't even get you high. It's
Right.
nothing,
Right. Exactly.
So it's
So true.
You need a lot less for pain than you think you do.
But besides just that, they would prescribe me muscle relaxers and
Whole
Wow.
gambit.
the one that makes you sleep at night, but it's also a
Seroquel or
Seroquel.
something.
Seroquel, which is one of the gnarliest drugs I've ever taken.
I agree.
Put a horse down.
I mean,
So,
it's
Some of the
for some
doses.
people, it's absolutely the right thing. For me, it just sent me into a completely different world. But I know many people
Right.
in recovery
Right.
that Seroquel is a wonderful.
Right.
I was
sleep
taking it
drug
for
for-
sleep for like most of last
Right.
year, but I kept going down in the dose. But
Yeah.
I know it is very powerful. If I would take it later than like 11 or 12 p.m., I'd sleep until noon the next day.
Yeah.
Right.
I have to take it at like 8 or 9 in order to wake up early the
Right.
next day. It's a powerful sedative.
Right.
But it's considered a safe drug for most in recovery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I
Well, yeah, it's
honor
like
people's
trazodone.
paths that
Right.
it assists them on. For me, it was not good, or maybe it was the combination of
Well,
all
yeah.
I'd
of
say
that
it's the
stuff.
common. You had a cocktail though.
Right. I've never taken it just singly.
Did they just offer? Did they just say, "Oh, you probably need these muscle relaxers too"? I mean, was this place sounds like the pill mills you hear of in Florida, kind
Dr.
of. the way you're saying
Feelgood.
it. Yeah.
And it's one of my things in recovery I've wanted to do is look into that more and advocate because it's still open and running.
Oh, really?
And a place that I'm doing my practicum at, I have a client that goes there, and I don't know how much has changed with the opioid epidemic and the laws, but yeah, it's still.
I'd imagine it's a little tighter, but it's hard to know.
Yeah, I don't know.
There used to be like Dr. Feelgoods like that in every other corner in Santa Monica. You could just walk in and literally just write whatever. They like tell you what to say basically. So you go into the doctor, oh, I'm experiencing this. Oh, I heard, this will help. You can get whatever you want, you just have to say the right thing. Like,
San Francisco too.
but yeah,
It's-
they did start, cracking down on it, and most of them have shut down, which is a
Yeah,
good
they
thing. But
have
it used to
to.
be easy. You could get whatever you want.
Yeah. But not one person ever said to me, like, I think you might have a problem. Not, I mean, at the
With the
doctors
opiates.
and, like maybe that was my hint with my doctor, like, you need to go to a pain clinic. Your pain is out of my scope of practice. But
or he was
nobody-
being safe, because
Yeah,
he
I'm
didn't
not
want to
sure.
get busted.
It's
One of the two.
Yeah. It's just I wonder about
It's
that
hard to
now.
say.
And even back then, a lot of I think a lot of these doctors have awareness now. Like when I was running around doctor shopping like that, a lot of them just don't know.
They don't
Like
know.
literally,
yeah.
I remember good doctors. They just had no idea.
Because they don't go through it themselves.
Yeah, like
And
Right.
they're kind of being sold by the, pharmaceutical companies. This helps for this. So they're like, yeah, that helps for
Right.
that. It's
And a lot of the older doctors are kind of old school, and this is what's always worked.
Yeah.
Like they have the drugs that they prescribe for certain things. It's worked for what they believe the majority of their patients, so they do it. I think disclaimers need to be there, though, letting you know, hey, you're likely going to become dependent upon this. There's a high chance you can become addicted to this, and there's a high chance if your tolerance starts going up and you start taking more, that you have a problem and you need to let us know. I'm guessing they weren't giving you that dialogue.
No.
I think now it's more like
Yes,
that. But
I went
back-
into a
yeah.
pharmacy the other day, and there was a sign right there about opioids, and
Yeah.
it spelled it out, and that was
Yeah, I've
great.
been seeing more of those
Me
too.
too. I mean, even in my my kid's school, a junior high, my kid had a basketball practice at a junior high, and all over the walls, opiates awareness, all in the schools.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
And
Yeah.
naloxone, you know, they're basically having the,
Yeah.
you know, the
Narcan.
Narcan, yeah.
Right.
The Narcan, I saw a billboard for that just here in Ogden
Yeah.
Yeah.
earlier today. So
Yeah.
they're letting people know of the overdose chances too.
Yeah. So I think we are making, some headway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go to that pill mill, you get worse.
Yeah. I just, it was all or nothing. I was running out of my script early. It was just never enough. It
Right,
never was
right.
enough. And the ironic thing, my back still hurt. I feel like it would scream with pain, but like more and more and more. It just fed it,
Right.
Absolutely.
It's so interesting you say that. So so my back too. So I prescribed with that back surgery and could get them like that, and my back hurt so bad when I was doing the pills. Like and I later found out that when you are detox, so this is crazy, and see if you guys if you experience this, but when you pull those pills out of your system, part of the detox process is your back hurts.
Yeah.
So I mean your back and your legs, right? Like getting off opiates, your back hurts. So so people get off opiates and they think they got back pain, and they start getting off opiates and they're like, dude, my
I
back
need these.
starts hurting so bad when I get off these. I'm like, yeah, no shit.
Right.
This is part of the detox.
Some worse than others, but for me that was the biggest symptom of detoxing, and it was like a long-term thing. It was for a month or two after I would come off heroin or opiates. My lower back would kill, like I couldn't sleep, and just something I had to go through.
See, mine was just body temperature regulation. I got so blessed that I didn't have the restless legs much. I just had the extremely depressive thoughts.
Yeah.
Just the horrible thoughts, the lack of motivation to do anything whatsoever. And, and then body temperature regulation was terrible. I mean,
Hot,
feet,
cold,
well, yeah,
hot,
out,
cold.
exactly. Like, out in the, it could be winter and my feet are sweating,
Right.
or it could be 90 degrees outside and I'm hugging my heater in my house, turned it up to 100,
Right.
just that type of thing. So, but the back, it's interesting you say that, Dustin, because, it's
Yeah,
a
you
good
just wonder
point.
how many
You almost
people
just
can't
keep
get off
feeding it
pills.
because they're like,
You
my
know,
back hurts again. And even like Frank said, Frank didn't even have a back issue, but
Right.
yet you probably could easily convince yourself that you did when
Oh,
you were
absolutely. I
detoxing.
thought I did. I would go to the doctors and stuff.
Yeah,
Going to the chiropractor.
Hey, actually, I tried to get off these, but I realized my back hurts.
Yeah.
So I actually
You
do
need
need
them.
these actually.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's just it's wild. Me and you have talked about this before.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's just with addicts and alcoholics. I don't know. But with me, it seemed like my back would just scream with pain, like wanting more. So it didn't help anything.
Right.
And I was abusing the Adderall, and I remember my mom looked at me one day and was like, we were supposed to go to my birthday party, and she was like, if you go to your birthday party like this, they're all going to think you're on meth again. I guess I was pulling faces, just behaving like I was on meth. And,
Right.
and I was just like, I was so tired, and I was so done, and I was so sick of chasing pills. I was so sick of it. I was sick of being in an abusive, crappy relationship. And I was just so tired, so sick and tired. And I went to my mom, and I had this 6-year job at a plasma center as a phlebotomist, and it was a good job. I got paid pretty well, and I went on leave with my back injuries, and I ended up just going crazy on the pills, and lost my job. And so I went to my mom and was like, I gotta get off of these. I gotta do something.
Yeah, that's a heavy loss. 6-year job. That's a heavy loss.
Yeah. And I really, it was hard for me because, I loved it there. I was a good employee, and all of a sudden I just fell off the face of the earth. Yeah, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do any of it anymore. I was just tired,
Right.
I wanted to be a good mom and have a good life, and I was starting to just behave in ways that, my mom was like, one of the things that was a clincher too, she said, you're going to lose your son if you don't quit.
Yeah.
And that was a line in the sand for me. Like, I'm not one of those people that loses their kids. I can't do this, right?
And you were a single mom.
No, so
At
I
this
was.
point,
No,
or
they
you were
were-
still with the
Yeah,
the same
it was.
man.
I mean, it was on and off and in and out.
Gotcha,
and-
right, okay.
But yeah, so at this point, I split up with him, and I went down to a detox center, Highland Ridge.
Right. Yep,
Yeah.
Sandy.
I laid there for 3 days, and the temperature thing, I could not handle it. I was so cold. And one of the people in there, one of the other guys in there, would go put blankets in the dryer and come lay them on me. And my legs, and I could not handle it.
Right.
And the doctor came in after 3 days of laying there, and everyone kept telling me, after 3 days it gets better. And it wasn't. And he said, I can give you something that'll make all this go away. And I was like, bet anything,
Yeah.
And he gave me Subutex.
Yeah.
I was there for 9 days, and then I was feeling good, Yeah, I'm great to get out. But
Right.
then I didn't realize, like, if I don't go get Suboxone or something, I'm going to withdraw from this.
Right.
So I was just stuck again.
God.
And I was so mad.
Yeah.
I was so
Right.
mad. I was like, I am chained to another substance.
Yeah.
And so I had to get out and find a Suboxone provider,
Right.
dealer, basically, unless I wanted to withdraw,
Yeah.
And they didn't tell you that while you were in there?
So when I was getting ready to discharge, basically, like, yeah, you need to go. Yeah, no. And they didn't taper me either, which confuses me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's normally not their protocol. I've done a lot of work with them, and that's normally it's if they send you to a treatment center, they make sure that the treatment center will accept you on Suboxone or Subutex, and then they'll make sure that the amount is appropriate. But I've never heard of them just discharging you at a certain amount without even giving you like a 30-day prescription or something.
Yeah.
No, and I mean,
that's
to
a
their
bad
defense, like,
experience.
I was a mess. Like,
Right.
who knows what really
Maybe-
happened. I
maybe-
remember I got in a fight with him in the lobby because I did want to get off of the Roxys and all of that, but I wanted him to give me my Adderall back when I left.
Oh, yeah.
And I got in a fight with him, and
I did that with my Ibogaine detox. I actually, after I finished, I called the guy and I said, hey, I need the rest of my pills back. I need my benzos and I need my Adderall. The Ibogaine's is no problem.
Yeah.
no, I remember now.
The
I
opiates,
wanted
no
him to
problem.
give me my MS Cotton back because I wanted to sell
Your
it.
MS content.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your
Because I was
opiates.
thinking, I can, I'm still super sick. I had no recovery.
Right.
You know? I was thinking I can sell this, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
won't take it, but I can sell it. Anyways, I don't know, but I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember, leaving with no prescription.
Right.
And you're off in just as bad of a spot.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't realize, but coming off Suboxone or methadone is, it's hell. It's like even worse than heroin.
Can be a
or-
lot heavier, especially
geez, yeah.
methadone. Month to
Yeah.
2 months of just bone pain. It gets in your bones.
And so a lot of detoxes taper, which is good, but for people that just keep relapsing and can't get sober, it could be a good alternative.
Absolutely.
Because people, if you get a prescription, you're just going and it's like taking your pill every day.
No, yeah, absolutely. Many people out there that are
Yeah.
successful, that take it responsibly, don't take it and sell it,
Yeah.
etc. It works for a lot of people,
Sort
for
of
those chronic
maintenance.
relapsers.
But
Yeah.
there's always that danger where, like, if you said you're in a position, if one day you don't have it or you can't get the prescription, you're just screwed.
Exactly.
So yeah, you
So
have
it becomes a big responsibility that you have to put.
Well, yeah,
high
and you
up on
went
your
you went through
responsibility
3
list.
days. If you would have hung on just another day before
She might have been there.
another 2 days, you would have started, and then but now you're like, what was the point of the detox? Like, to feel miserable
Yeah.
for 3 days and then just get linked back up to an opiate? and-
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
know.
I didn't know anything about Suboxone or anything at that time. So,
What
But
year
they,
was
but they
this?
could have been looking at you too as like, man, she maybe as like a maintenance program, like she probably needs to be on subs so
Yeah.
she won't keep relapsing.
Well, that's what it sounds like
It's
they
hard to
told
say,
her.
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Was they told you needed to get a provider?
Yeah,
at
they
the end.
did. They
So they did
did.
discharge you with that, which
yeah.
makes me feel better.
Yeah.
You know.
I think it was like 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
a
milligram
while
did they
ago.
discharge you at?
8. Well, they didn't. I don't know. They just referred me to a doctor, but
But you were taking one
Well,
a
I had
day,
to
like
find
an
my
8
own.
milligram a day.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
left there, yeah, that's a heavy dose to leave.
well, I'm not sure what they were giving me, but my parents came and got me, and then we had to go on a mission to find a Suboxone provider, and
Right.
that seemed to be. It was kind of hard.
Yeah.
Especially in 2012 in Utah,
Mm-hmm.
that was a hard thing.
Yeah, there weren't very many back then.
Well, because every doctor was limited to, I think, 60 patients or something, maybe 100
Yeah.
patients.
Yeah. Well, I did find one, and he was such, I don't even know what to call him. I thought he was so rude, but he was exactly what I needed. Looking
Right.
back, he was no nonsense. And I remember one time, like I told him, I was like whining about my mental health, you know, and maybe I need this or that. And he did look at me and say, you know, it seems like you always need a pill or something to fix, you know, what's wrong in you, and you're always jumping, you know, have you tried anything else? Basically, like, you know, this is what you're always doing, is relying on different things.
Right.
And
That's
I was
cool.
like, how dare you? You know, at
Yeah.
the time I was
Offensive.
like, I was really offended. But he, you know, started me on Suboxone, and I was paying $300 a month for it.
Right.
No
Yeah.
job. I had withdrawn my retirement to like keep me and my son taken care of,
Right.
you know. And I was on 8 milligrams a day, and you know, I couldn't tolerate it very well. I would get up and get my son ready for school, put him on the bus, and then I'd go to sleep, and I would have to like set my alarm to get him off the bus. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't
Right.
function very well on it, and I know there are some people that do great.
Right.
I just didn't do well. I was just a mess, and I was sick of paying that $300 a month, and I was sick of being tied to a substance. And
Right.
I told him, I'm like, I want to get off of this. And he was very honest with me, like, I don't see many people do it, and it's probably going to take you a good year.
Right.
And one good thing about my personality that can serve me
Which is actually
sometimes-
smart that your doctor is wanting to do it a long term. I mean, just saying, if you look at the statistics,
Yeah.
smart that he's wanting to do it over a long period of time.
Yeah, he's
Because
being
that is-
safe about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I disregarded his whole message.
Sure.
And I was like, I'm doing this. I was just ready. And
Yeah.
so I titrated myself down, and I did it in 4 months.
Wow.
And towards the end of that time, my mom is a recovering alcoholic.
Right.
And she had found a lot of hope and help in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And my mom also almost loved me to death throughout my life. She enabled me a lot.
Right.
She did whatever. And I knew it was over when she told me, you know, I have no idea what to do with you. And she dropped me off in the hands of Alcoholics Anonymous,
Yeah.
took me to a meeting. And so when I was at the end, not even all the way off Suboxone, I started attending
Right.
AA meetings. And, you know, I took that last dose, and I planned it for the day my son was going to start school. And so that, you know, so it was like August 25th was my sobriety date, and he started school the next day. So if I had any issues, you know,
Right.
Right.
and it was hell, but, you know, I was damned and determined, and I did not want to use anything again, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of where my
And how long were you
journey
on
started.
that for? How long were you on the Suboxone for?
I would say only like 3 to 4 months.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So that was it, and that's when you started going into the rooms and buying into the 12 steps and
Yeah.
where your recovery starts.
What was it
taking
like
place.
at first? Like experiencing AA or?
Yeah, good question.
So I did it like not the way that I would recommend anyone doing it. You know, people talk about pink clouds and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't trust. You know, I'd been through that really abusive relationship. I almost, I was just beaten down. I didn't think anything of myself. You know, my self-esteem was really bad. I didn't trust anybody. I was kind of antisocial. I felt incredibly awkward. I didn't dare to talk to anybody.
Right.
So I would go to meetings, but I wouldn't socialize. I wouldn't fellowship. I almost didn't trust people. I feel like I had screwed up a lot of things in my life, and I thought if I talk to these people, I might end up on drugs again. And I just lived in fear of screwing up my life, like, and didn't dare move. So I would go to meetings, but I didn't take suggestions. I was really uncomfortable in my own skin. You know, I did not make myself a part of.
That's probably
It's-
common
it's
for a lot
sad-
of people,
well,
though.
it sounds just like Ben.
Yeah.
Remember in his
Right.
story, kind of the same thing. You're getting sober. You really don't know who you are.
Yeah.
You know, at this point, and I've
no
been there.
idea. You know, I didn't know. I just didn't trust myself to talk to anyone. I didn't want to screw up anymore. I was so sick of it, you know, so I didn't dare make any decisions.
Right.
So I kept showing up, but then you get me into almost a year sober, and I'm not working any of the principles of the program. I'm not doing any of the suggestions, and I was so miserable. And
Right.
You got a year sober.
yeah, I'm almost a year sober, and I just am miserable. And I still have this reservation that there's a pill out there that can help me. It's like a mental health
Right.
pill, or there's something is wrong with me. And I made myself unique from the people in the rooms, you know, like, I don't know. I'm like, it can't be that simple. I'm not an alcoholic, you know?
Yeah.
Something else is wrong with me. And I had one last thing where I ended up going to Davis Behavioral Health for some counseling, and they started me on like an antipsychotic, and it did a number on me. I was really, really, really dark, and some suicidal thoughts. And I remember thinking, like, I don't want to do drugs. I didn't have a desire to do drugs. I didn't have a desire to drink, but I had no desire to live. I did not want to live like this. I didn't want to. I just
massive depression.
I
like,
was
what's
just
the point?
yeah. And then, but I have this beautiful child, you know,
Right.
he's
Right.
amazing. And I was like, I just wanted to cease to exist, you know? And, so I'd had it again, even in sobriety. And I was, you know, my mom started talking to me, and maybe you should take some of these suggestions that this program offers, right?
Right.
And I got determined again, and I started talking to people, and I started putting myself out there, and I found a sponsor, and I started doing step work, and I started fellowshipping, and
Serving.
yeah, the next thing was like, get a service position. So there was this foundation called the Shannon J. Scholarship Foundation that does activities and events to raise money to get people into treatment. So I wrote a letter to try to get on the committee of that. And, you know, I was still just scared and full of fear, but, you know, I did it. And so I joined up with them and got on that committee, and I started doing service things. And so I started like becoming friends and fellowshipping with people, you know, in the rooms. And my dad had told me at one point, because early on in my recovery, I'd gotten to a relationship, and I had no idea who I was, and it was a mess. It was a nightmare. And he's like, you know, you need to take a year off and not date, get your shit together, and take care of your son.
Right.
And me and my son are living with my grandma, sharing a bedroom, right? At the time, like, it was just...
Right.
So anyways, I'm about 8 months no dating, working on me, working the steps,
That's
going
such
to
a good
meetings.
suggestion, but it's so hard for so many people to do in early recovery.
I
Oh,
know,
yeah.
It's
I
the
know,
last thing
I
any
know.
addict or alcoholic
Well,
or
you
young...
just-
And
Oh,
you have
yeah.
to learn the hard way. I have
You
to
do.
learn everything the hard way, and I
had to
hate
do
it.
that over and over.
Yeah. So,
Especially in AA and treatment centers where you're with the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Right, and you're off drugs and alcohol and feeling good.
Right.
And like you're like, oh yeah, it makes you feel good about
Yeah,
yourself.
you're meeting people left and
Yeah,
right.
your hormones are kicking
Yeah,
back in.
Exactly.
It just, it's so hard to like, you know, tell someone to do that and for them to follow through, but it's such a good idea.
right,
Yeah.
right. It is.
You don't even know yourself, like you were
No
saying.
idea.
What do you
like,
have
full
to
of
offer?
Fear, yeah, full
no
of
Yeah,
idea.
you're vulnerable.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to either screw up your life or you're going to screw up mine. It's just...
Just gonna be unhealthy.
Right.
Like Dawn was saying, like what do you have to offer? It's not gonna be
Right.
like a balanced give and take kind
Yeah.
of relationship.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, you know,
Yeah.
unhealthy, codependent, and
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm at like 8 months of my non-dating and just doing the deal, and you know, I'm feeling good. And we're at one of our events we were doing. It was at the Alano Club, putting on an event, and there was this guy on the committee, and he started talking to me, and really sweet. We got to know each other, and at the end of the night, he was like, "Do you want to have dinner with me?" And I remember I was just like, my dad said I can't date for a year, and I'm only at 8 months. And at the time, he seemed really non-threatening. He
Right.
wasn't really my type. Really nice guy, and I was like, sure, you know. So we went out to dinner, and that man is now my husband today.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's-
He like I really respected him. What I fell in love with him was his service. Like,
yeah.
always, like when we were dating, I would see him do things and he never like looked for credit for it. He was just the
Right.
most. He went up to Valley Camp and he was in recovery, and that's one of the things he did was just service, and
Right.
I fell in love with it, the way he treated people. And so, you know, we did start dating and doing these events together. Him and my son were getting along really well.
That's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. My ex that I had been with, you know, was not getting any help, was not getting any better.
This is your son's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and I utilized the program of Alcoholics Anonymous to kind of help my relationship with that and get rid of that resentment. And, you know, I prayed for him.
Right.
And, you know, I did some step work surrounding that. And
Right.
at this point, I had come to peace with all of that. And one day he came over because he would see our son sometimes, but he was pretty unhealthy. And he threw me into a wall and told me, you know, if you don't let me see our son, I'm going to kill you. And
oh God.
I ended up getting a protective order, and there was
Good.
some peace, you know, in our lives. But then there would be these times and moments of clarity where he would call me and he'd say, "How are you doing this? Like, how are you doing so well?" And I would tell him, and you know, sometimes he would do good for a little while, and he would just fall back off with that mental stuff that never got cleared
Right.
up. You know, and one of the hardest things that I dealt with in my sobriety was my husband and I had a baby. She was 2 weeks old, and I got a phone call, and my son's dad had taken his own life.
Oh my God.
goodness.
You know, it was really bittersweet. It was one of the hardest things that I have had to go through, though. Part of me was like, I hope he has found some peace. I watched this tortured soul just
Sure.
never find anything, you know, and I was doing really well. You know, I had a daughter, and he, you know, just, I wish he could have found the solution, but unfortunately he didn't. But you know, one of the coolest things is when I got that phone call and I had this like 2-week-old baby in my arms, I immediately turned to God when I hung up the phone. Like, you know, that's one of the things that I've gained in this program is a relationship with God, a higher power, the universe.
Right.
It's just been like no human power could relieve me of my alcoholism.
Right.
Yeah, that's
No
it right
human
there.
power. And I didn't get that, but you know, that's what I learned. And I had developed a relationship with God, and I just said, you know, what am I going to do? And I was really scared that I may have like a mental lapse, and but I just continued on the program and what I had learned, and you know, we made it through. We made it through, and you know, thank God for my husband. I know he was put into my life for a reason.
Right.
He just loves me unconditionally, and he accepts me for who I am, and he lets me be me. And you know, he's been such a blessing in my life today and such an inspiration.
It's
You know?
beautiful.
That is so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I've
Absolutely.
met her husband. Her husband's a really amazing man, really impressive man.
Yeah, he is.
God
Sounds
often,
like
you
it.
know, I feel like shows himself through others, you know? And so you met this guy, and he was all about the principles and all about service, and it's, you know, this beautiful thing that's, you know, like another way to connect you to a power greater than yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And you had something to offer at that point. It was
Right.
only 8 months, but you'd had something to offer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure
You
he
had
would say
actually
the same
started
thing
taking
about
action.
Yeah.
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 I'm sure he would say
what
the
a
same
blessing
beautiful
you've been
things
to
about you.
in his life too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's been really cool so far. Like, we've both just literally built this awesome life from like the ground up, and it's like I'm living a dream today. It's incredible, like what recovery has done for me. Things that, you know, other people might not think is that great, but you know, like we bought a house. I have peace today. He's got a good job. I love my job. I love what I do.
Right.
I'm going to school to be a substance use disorder counselor.
Yeah.
All I've ever wanted
Which
is
you're
just
going
some
to be
peace.
great at.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Exactly.
I can tell.
Yeah, you're already great at it. You're already pretty much doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
The way you work with people.
Just getting the letters now.
Get
Yeah,
that
just
sudsy.
getting that-
Yeah.
getting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that story. I want to bring up your son, who I've seen a lot of, like what an amazing kid that is.
Mm-hmm.
He's out at I see him quite often, and
How old is he now?
12.
he's an impressive kid. He's a smart, and he's, you can tell he's I don't know if been through a lot's the right word,
Mature.
but it could be, but he's more mature young kid, and he's a pretty impressive kid. But
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I've enjoyed getting to know him. He's
Which is such a blessing, because I mean, it's so unfortunate with this disease, but I can't even count how many people I know have gone through substance issues and addiction, alcoholism, and with kids, and their kids get taken away. Like,
Yes,
you know,
sir.
like CPS, DCFS, and it's just such a tragic situation. Or even if they don't, just growing up in these kind of broken homes that are just, that kid's going to have problems later on. And it's just so
Right.
cool that, you were always able to put that like as the priority, early on, and then later on, like presumably recovery as the priority, so you can keep being a good mother. But,
Right.
just from what Dustin said, just sound
Yeah.
like it's an awesome
Yeah.
kid. And it's,
Well,
Yeah.
he comes and works out with us, and he's learning a lot. I've been really proud of him. Like when he come, like the other day when it was a couple weeks ago when he's over there working out with us. And
I got to see this.
yeah,
Girl
he's just
pumping
a little,
iron.
Just a little, little-
Probably, probably put me to shame in
Yeah.
there.
He's a really, really cool kid. Like, he came in, he was easy to raise. And he was, my only one for 10 years and around a lot of adults. He's brilliant. He has a lot of really, really good qualities. He's seen a lot. He's been through a lot, but he's also grown up with me in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
And
right.
he knows a lot of addicts. He knows, I'm very open and honest with him, and I teach the principles, in our home and the values. And
Absolutely.
that you learned from
yeah,
those steps.
Yeah.
Wow.
And our daughter, my husband and I have a 2-year-old, and she has got bright red hair, and she is hell on wheels, man. Like, God gives you what you can handle at the time,
Right.
and man,
Yeah.
she's awesome too. But yeah, she's a crazy little redhead for
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah.
Well, I've seen with you, so me and you met, let's see, it's been over a year. It's been like, over a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we started working together, and I've watched your transformation with fitness and nutrition and what you're doing with that. And I want to hear like what's happened with you with that. 'Cause I mean, so for everyone listening, at work, Amberly handles at War Cold Creek. Amberly handles like the case management and basically deals with all the clients and basically runs the show
It's an important job.
at the treatment center. She basically is like handles everything. And one of the things that's been awesome is just your promotion of getting people to buy into health, and I think it's because you obviously bought into health. I'd like to, what's your journey with health been like?
Well, with some of those core issues with the insecurities and the weight problems and, health and nutrition is extremely important to me, and just learning how to love and accept myself. The more that I can love and accept myself, the better off I'm going to be to help others and serve others. So I, notice that correlation by what I put into my body affects how I feel. And my goal today is to feel good as much as I can naturally and treat food like it's, medicine, because it pretty much is. So that is how I regulate my mood, my everything today. I always thought that I had a lot of different mental problems. And today I treat it with the food I eat, what I put into my body. And when I met you, Dustin, it just like was the icing on the cake, like learning how to work out that way. You know, and I've liked sports, but I'm not naturally athletic. And, you know, it takes me a while to get the movements I feel like, but I absolutely love it. And it does so much for me and my well-being, you know.
Well, so you remember you thought you were crippled, right, with your back?
Right. I applied for disability
tell
at
them-
one point in my life.
So what, and I watched her, deadlift, 205?
Yep.
205 pounds?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome.
I remember she deadlifted it. We filmed it, and she says, I applied for like I thought I had a, you know, disabling back.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, and now she's pulling 205 off the ground, doing kettlebell swings and burpees and pull-ups and
Yeah.
back squats,
Yeah.
So cool.
shoulder to overhead. You know.
Yeah.
Gosh, what a transformation! That's what I love about war.
Yeah.
When someone really embraces it, seeing what it's done for so many.
It was cool
Yeah.
from my perspective as like a past client, like almost a year ago. Just like I said earlier, you were always one that was like so easy to talk to as a staff member. Everyone would go to you with problems, and just like the way you're able to communicate and be empathetic towards others. But another awesome thing was like you were the only one that would come into the gym with us like every time and do Dustin's program.
Right.
You know, and that
Going
was
on
just
hikes.
it was so inspirational to see you like, you know, latch onto that and be a part of it, like for yourself and then also for others too.
Right.
Just really cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's been, you know, like one of my biggest rapport building thing with the clients.
Right.
Like I heard one client say one time, he was telling another guy like kind of how the day goes. He's like, then we'll do case management and then we'll all go to the gym. And Amberly comes with us because she's not going to make us do something that she won't do herself.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
That's so big. Because it's not easy workouts that you guys are doing.
No.
When Dustin puts me through them, they're certainly not easy.
No.
And mine are modified.
But I feel so blessed and grateful to even have met Dustin and have that added
Thanks
into
for
my
saying
life.
that.
Like it's just been, I have this foundation of recovery, but it just has added so much to my recovery, and being able to talk to him and learn more about nutrition and pick his brain. And I follow him with how he's eating, and you know, I've followed him on this latest ketogenic diet, and I'm 3 weeks in, and you know, it's just I love it.
Dude, I really appreciate you saying that.
It's
Yeah.
true.
I really appreciate it. That's good.
That's cool to hear.
It's
Yeah.
so cool to hear you say it that way, like where you had your foundation, because I've experienced that for myself personally, and also other people I talk to with more long-term sobriety. It's like they have a foundation, and for me, it's like that was like AA. It sounds like it
Right.
was for you too, learning the principles, applying them, living like that. But then you need to keep progressing in life. You know, you can't just like rest on your laurels and only do that.
Right.
So, you know, for me, it was like that too. I had to sponsor AA, but then I started doing WAR, getting that plugged in, and just continuing to build and push yourself is like key for, you know, constant progress and for, you know, a healthy sobriety.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you know, principles of truth, like I think Dustin, you say
Yeah.
it, they're all aligned, you know.
Exactly.
And a lot of the WAR principles and the way Dustin talks and lives, you know, align with those other truths. And
Right.
you know, it's
Yeah.
just an amazing addition, you know.
Rigorous honesty.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's good stuff. Oh, dude, you're so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
You're so
for
cool.
sure.
I know, dude. I'm thankful we have met, and
Right.
you're gonna do big things because the way you can work with people and everything you've been through, like I've already seen it. Like you're going on to big things with work.
Thank
in
you.
your
I
life.
appreciate it.
How hard you work. I mean, right now you're working full time, working with your husband to run a family, and going to school. I mean, that's impressive.
And I'm
Absolutely.
doing an internship right now, and yeah, it baffles me that I'm doing this today. Like, absolutely baffles me. Some days I'm like, wow, you know. Yeah, but I just, you know, take everything one day at a time, and you know, I try to practice all the principles, and you know, try to be the best version of myself every day, you know. And everybody I meet, I try to just, you know, practice love and tolerance, and you know, it seems to work.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
shows, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can tell.
Well, thank you for being on. It means a
Yeah,
lot. It
yeah.
was a good experience.
Thank you guys.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate
It's
it.
an honor.
Thank
We're,
you so much.
Remember, we're at War Addiction for the Instagram, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, why
Workout
don't you run
addic-
them down, Frank?
Workout Addiction Recovery on our Facebook.
Yeah.
And we actually, Amberly, we got to have you leave our guests with a challenge.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
So, like, I want just pick something. I don't care if it's like meditate for 10 minutes in the morning or go for a jogging experience or
Something
whatever
you do
something that helps you.
something that helps you challenge our our listeners to do.
Man, so I just want to share one practice that really helps me, is gratitude. You know, at that one of those points in my sobriety, or when I was getting sober, and in that first year when I wasn't really practicing anything, I was so full of fear, and I'd wake up and my head would run a million miles an hour. And I started doing this thing when my feet would hit the floor, I would just start saying thank yous for anything I encountered. And it would be sometimes super ridiculous, like, thank you, I can walk. And then, you know, I'd walk into the bathroom and thank you, I have electricity. Thank you, I have running water. Thank you that I have a toothbrush. I get my car. Thank you that my car starts. Thank you, I have a foot to push the pedal to make the gas go. Wow. Like, break it down. Like,
Absolutely.
no matter where I'm at. And, you know, that completely changed my mindset. And I use that today. So on the way out here, you know, I can get in my head about things, and that's just not a good place to be. I'm not really a channel for anything good. So on the way out here, it was thank yous, you know, like, thank you for this beautiful world, and thank you for, you know, so I just switch it to thank yous, and and that completely shifts your mindset and puts you in a different place. And then from my husband's playbook, he does do three nice things for people every day, and the trick is you can't tell anyone, and they can't know that you did it.
That's so cool.
I like that.
He does it, and he's
I like both of those. In fact, I know a few
Absolutely.
people, both men and women, that, and especially a few women that would benefit, are going to benefit a lot, not only from this podcast, but specifically from that challenge. So, thank you. I think those are some good ones.
cool. Yeah.
Thank you for being on.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
for
Love
coming,
you.
your time, and
Thank you.
your
Love you
candor and
guys.
honesty. It'll help a lot of people.
Thank you.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thank you so much. This has been the War Podcast Season 2, Episode 3, and we'll be back next week with Episode 4. Thanks again, Amberly.
Yeah, thank you.
Word.